Tuesday, July 15 edition of PFT PM, 13 days away from the triumphant return of PFT Live, which means the shuttering of the daily PFT PM. We still do it when something happens after 9 a.m. Eastern that requires me to spout off about whatever I may be spouting off about, typically from this spot here, not a kitchen. We get that comment a lot, the Olive Garden Italian kitchen. No, it is a wine cellar. It is full of rock and all sorts of other swanky things. One of these days, I'll turn the camera around so you can see the whole thing. But this is the best spot for me to do the alternative PFT PM set. There's a router right there on the wall, high speed, everything great, rarely an issue. I've now jinxed it for the duration of today's show. Let's get to it. Plenty of topics for today. And the big news yesterday, out of the blue, New York Jets extending the contract of receiver Garrett Wilson. He's a guy who was drafted round one back in 2022, had 3 years in, eligible for a long-term deal, had 2 years left on his contract at $20.3 million, got a 4-year, $130 million extension. Now, this is another example of how the sausage gets made in Scoop Town. The people who get the texts from the agents telling them that a new deal is done, they don't tell you it's a 6-year, $150.3 million contract. They tell you it's a 4-year, $130 million contract because that looks better. $32.5 million per year looks better. A lot better than what this deal is worth from signing. $25 million and change. 32.5 versus 25. And the reality is, and I know I'm repeating myself, but I feel like I have to because I get these same questions all the time. There's no such thing as an extension. There's no 4-year, $130 million extension. There is a new 6-year contract between the Jets and Garrett Wilson for $150.3 million. And that's not a bad thing. That's a great contract. And he had 2 years before he could even start the franchise tag dance. Who knows what the team is going to look like? He got certainty. He has life-changing money. It's a good thing, but it's not $32.5 million per year over the next 4 years. It's $25 million per year over the next 6. They control his rights for 6 years. Now, at some point, if he continues to play at a high level, they'll tear it up and they'll give him a new deal. But they have him under contract for 6 more seasons. Not 4, not 5, not 3, but 6. So that's something to remember. And now the question becomes, will they do the same thing with cornerback Sauce Gardner? I got the vibe based upon some of the feedback that he's gotten from his new coaching staff that maybe they'd like to see him reestablish himself in year 4. First 2 years, great. Joined a short list of defensive players who were all-pro first team in their first 2 NFL seasons, first cornerback to ever do it. Fell off last year. They're challenging him to step up. Will that affect what they're willing to pay him on a new contract? Will he choose to wait? And remember, from the team standpoint, if you can kick that can through the 4th year of a first-round pick's contract, you're ahead of the game because you're never going to pay that guy the difference for what he should have made in year 4 and what he did make in year 4. And Wilson would have made maybe $4 million this year, I think the number is. He's going to make a lot more than that, even though the extension doesn't kick in for 2 years. No, new contract, gets paid a lot of money now, gets his reward now, and some teams are inclined to get through that 4th year before they pay the player. You could argue it's a sign of dysfunction to be like that. You could argue that the best teams will reward their players immediately as soon as they can. Because remember, first-round picks don't make what they used to make. There's a rookie wage scale aimed at preventing busts from making a lot of money that they never earned. Well, the guys who earn the money they never got should get their money after 3 years. That's the key. So could it be that the Jets are becoming not dysfunctional? Is it possible that new GM Darren Muji and new coach Aaron Glenn will counter the dysfunction flowing from the top of the organization? Hey, there are a few teams out there They have enough talent in place between the front office and the coaching staff to overcome the dysfunction and manage up, as Jason Garrett said last year. It's kind of stuck with as a coach or a GM, not just managing down, you have to manage up, and you have to control your ownership, and you have to get them to maybe do what they wouldn't otherwise choose to do. So good for the Jets so far. Garrett Wilson under contract, and what a difference. Remember the report, Sunday splash from NFL media last year? If Aaron Rodgers comes back, Wilson may want to be traded. Rodgers gone, Wilson stays 6 years under contract at $150.3 million. Right, from team that may be in danger of becoming properly functional to team that is still dysfunctional, the Browns. Here's more on the running back Quinshon Judkins situation. And this is informed by a couple of things. Number one, the police report that came out yesterday. The allegation from the on-again, off-again girlfriend that he punched her in the mouth and chin area with a closed fist, left visible bruising. She made the report 5 days after the incident happened. She told police she didn't want to call 911 because she didn't want to create a problem for him. And then after 5 days, she decided it was the right thing to do after talking to family and friends. She still had bruising when she went to the police. She showed them photographs of much more obvious bruising from where she allegedly was punched. He allegedly hit her elsewhere. But the most obvious and the most troubling, I think, from the NFL's perspective is the punch. So, I've mentioned the possibility of Judkins being placed on paid leave. That happened last year to Brown's second-round pick from Ohio State, Mike Hall. He was arrested August 13. Within 2 weeks, he was placed on paid leave for allegations of domestic violence, allegedly put a gun to the head of his fiancée. So he got placed on paid leave. And I think there's a pretty good chance that Judkins is going to get placed on paid leave. And some have said, well, how can they put him on paid leave if he hasn't signed his contract? And that's an excellent point. They'll just wait until he signs his contract. Either way, he's out of sight. Either way, he's not with the Browns. And when it comes to putting a guy on paid leave, the NFL doesn't want to create a negative news story until it has to. If a guy gets accused of domestic violence in April before the offseason program even begins, or let's say in March, clearly before it's begun, don't need to do anything. Nobody's here. Nobody's showing up. So that's the thing to watch. Judkins signs his contract, and then the NFL possibly, if not likely, will put him on paid leave. You never know what they're going to do because there is no real precedent. They just do whatever they want to do. And they've got enough information now where they can investigate this. And I don't know if the on-again, off-again girlfriend / alleged victim will cooperate with the NFL. They may just go on the police report. And they may decide based on the police report they're putting him on paid leave. But I won't be surprised if he ends up on paid leave after he signs his contract. And then he's going to have a decision to make. Because the whole concept of paid leave is you stay there while your case is pending, until your case is resolved. And then after the case is resolved, you stay there until the NFL decides what to do with you under the personal conduct policy, which can be a lengthy and cumbersome process, especially if you put both of them together. What Mike Hall did last year, he pleads to disorderly conduct. He ultimately misses 5 games, 4 on paid leave, got a 5-game suspension. He got credit for the games he missed while on paid leave. He was back by October. Judkins is going to have to decide, what do I do here? What do I do? What kind of a deal do I strike? Will the prosecutor go easy, or will the prosecutor decide, hey, we know what this guy's trying to do. He's trying to resolve this quickly. You want to resolve it quickly, you got to plead to something more than disorderly conduct, disturbing the peace, or whatever low-level misdemeanor you may want. So, yeah, it raises the stakes to get the deal done. I go back to Rashee Rice, and plenty of people still ask me, how is he not on paid leave? Look, I don't know. He's got 8 felony counts pending, and felony counts are one of the ways you can end up on paid leave. But it's not domestic violence, and domestic violence seems to be the thing that gets the NFL to use paid leave. But I guarantee you this, if Rashee Rice had been put on paid leave a year ago, you're damn well certain that criminal case would have been resolved by now. It would have been done. He would have taken his punishment and he would have moved on, because otherwise, yeah, he got paid last year, but you didn't get to play, and guys want to play. So Judkins is going to have to make some quick decisions if he's put on paid leave. And if I had to guess one way or the other, I would say that once he signs his contract, based upon what's in that police report, feels like that's what the league is going to do. But obviously, they're in a position to be privy to much more information than we have right now. I saw this morning that Jahmyr Gibbs, the great Lions running back, a guy who could be a superstar if they used him all the time, has been lining up more at receiver. Hey, that makes sense. Get David Montgomery and Gibbs on the field at the same time. I really do wonder, though, because Gibbs is entering year 3. And after this year, he's going to be eligible for a new contract. How much more will he get the ball? Will it be catches? Will it be runs? Does he end up with heavy receiving yardage? Does he make the argument next year, I should get paid like a number 1 running back and a number 2 receiver? That was the Le'Veon Bell argument years ago with the Steelers. You know, we've seen the Lions pay their foundational players, except for Aiden Hutchinson, who's coming back from that broken leg, and it remains to be seen whether they pay him before or after 4th year of his career. With Gibbs, who doesn't get used as much as he should, and if he was getting used more than he is, he'd be able to command a lot more. How do you find the right sweet spot? And does Gibbs at some point want to play for a team where he is Saquon Barkley, where he is Derrick Henry? It's a tough sale to a guy who, you know, is on a good team, but you're taking a reduced load. Does he want to go somewhere where he gets to be the guy and be the workhorse, even if he's not on a team that is stacked? Interesting questions for Jahmyr Gibbs. And this new approach where he's going to play more receiver, how does he really feel about that in John Morton's offense? There's a lot of questions about the Lions this year. We just assume they're going to be really good again because they have a lot of really good players. Their coaching staff has had extensive turnover. And just by virtue of the fact that Gibbs is going to be doing more of what he didn't do under Ben Johnson, it just shows you how different it's going to be. But what kind of dynamics is this introduced into his usage, his stats, and his financial expectations after this year, when he's going to be expecting the contract he deserves? And, well, you know, you only had X yards rushing and X yards receiving. Yeah, but you embrace me and use me, and I'll show you why I deserve a lot more. So this is one of the wrinkles and realities of having a good team. The Lions are finding out, after years of having a bad team, there are plenty of champagne problems that arise for a good team. And the Jahmyr Gibbs contract is just going to be one of them. And one of the big factors is, how much does he augment his time as a running back with his time as a receiver? And what does that do to his short-term and long-term value? This story came up yesterday, and you know, it's not surprising given the reality we're now in, the chaos in college football, the simple proposition that players can get paid. They can get paid by anyone not connected to the program. They're getting paid by the program. How does that mindset apply at high school football? And what it created, I think, was a degree of nonchalance for Teddy Bridgewater, the head coach at Miami Northwestern. He coached the team to a state championship last year, then came back and played for the Lions in the postseason. He's back coaching again, but now he's suspended. And look, how did this all come to light? He goes to social media and he's trying to get supporters of the program to pay for some of the things he paid for last year, like Uber rides, $700 a week, pregame meals, athletic recovery services. And I just think the fact that it's so out in the open now, and it's so accepted now that the players get benefits, that people may not stop and think, hey, there may be some rule out there that I'm breaking. And look, when you consider the schools that Miami Northwestern competes with, I can understand why the coaches of the other schools are like, what the hell? We don't have this for our players. Why should they be allowed to do it for their players? But I think the more common reaction to this is good. Hey, Teddy Bridgewater's got the resources. He's taking care of these kids. 75% of the kids at Miami Northwestern come from economically disadvantaged homes. Good, good. Give them some value for what they're doing. It's, you know, it's a question of rules are rules versus what's good for the kids. And we've seen the rules are rules crowd losing repeatedly at the NCAA level. And I think it's created this mindset of who cares about the rules if it's good for the kids. And I think that's where most people come down. That's where I come down. I do understand why the coaches of the other programs would be saying, hey, this isn't fair to us because these Miami Northwestern kids are getting the benefits directly from having a guy who made millions of dollars as an NFL quarterback, paying for Uber rides, meals, etc. So it's a weird situation. It's a predictable byproduct of the new NIL reality at the college level. And it remains to be seen what it means for Teddy Bridgewater. Will he just step down? Will he go back and sign with the Lions? Will he sign with a team? Will he be a backup quarterback this year? Will he go to a place where he thinks he might be able to play this year? He's only 32. It feels like he's been around forever. He's 32. So we'll be watching the story. And it's unfortunate that it happened because at the end of the day, it was good for the kids. And I understand it may be unfair to the other schools in the conference that Miami Northwestern is in, but it was good for the kids, and it was good that Teddy Bridgewater was doing it. And the fact that it all came to light just shows you how common and how accepted this concept is, that the kids who play the game that we love to watch are finally getting something in return for the effort and the sacrifice and the talent that they display. All right, one last topic for today. You know what? I'm gonna call an audible. I'm not gonna call an audible here. I may talk about it tomorrow. We got enough to talk about today. All right, no audible. I don't want to upset Gary any more than I already do. Von Miller, through his agent Joby Brandon. Hey, Von Miller, future Hall of Famer, Super Bowl 50 MVP, a couple of Super Bowl titles under his belt, got a big contract with the Bills. He's now a free agent. His agent Joby Brandon says that there are 3 teams interested in Von Miller, but Brandon wouldn't name the teams. Now, there is a rule of thumb in the agent business that if an agent claims that there are teams interested in the player, but the teams aren't named, there are no teams. There are no teams. So I'm not a believer that that's true in every case. There are different reasons why teams don't want to be linked to a player. There may be other players they're talking to. They may have issues on their roster they're trying to resolve. They may want to go to a player at the position who's currently there and ask him to take a pay cut. And if he doesn't, then he's out and Von Miller comes in. We never know the backstory behind a team's potential interest, but there have been plenty of teams over the years, especially Bill Belichick's Patriots, that don't want anyone to know that they're interested in a given player. But Von Miller presumably still has some gas in the tank. He was a top 2 or 3 draft pick in 2011, the year that Cam Newton came out. That's how long Von Miller's been around. And he just keeps going. So good for him. And we'll see where he lands. There's plenty of older players who are out there still waiting for their next opportunity. I think once training camp opens, maybe once guys get injured, maybe once financial expectations reduce a little bit. It really would be hard. We've said this before in reference to Keenan Allen. You're still doing the same job you've always done. And you've been making $20 million a year. Now they want to pay you 1.5. Like, I'm not doing that. But at some point you just have to accept, hey, it's that or nothing. And I want to play and I want to make that money and I want one last opportunity. Maybe I want to try to win a Super Bowl, whatever the case may be. I think we'll see some of these veteran players land once we get into training camp. But, every year there will be guys who aren't signed as the season begins or guys who get cut right before the season. And the argument will be, well, the team didn't want to have to guarantee their full salary for the year under the CBA. If you got 4 more years of service and you're on the week 1 roster, you get the balance of your pay as termination pay if you're cut. So that's always been we got to cut the guy before week 1 so his salary doesn't become guaranteed. A lot of those guys, after week 1, they still don't get signed. I mean, it seems like that happens every year. Oh, that guy's going to get signed after week 1, and then he just never does. So we'll see what happens with Miller. We'll see what happens with the other veterans that are out there. But we know how this goes. Players who have been integral to the sport for years, they disappear, and someone else takes their place, and the train just keeps rolling. All right, we're going to roll through a few questions before we wrap this up. From Ryan Nazet, what are the legal options for the players who believe that the NFLPA leadership is corrupt? His word, not mine. Now, there's no real legal option for just backing up this idea that they're corrupt. You got to prove it, and you got to come up with a way to prove it. And there are different things that you can do. And one thing that you can do as a player is explore the possibility of a lawsuit alleging that the NFLPA violated what's known as the duty of fair representation. And here's one very simple approach that a player could take. I'm not advocating, I'm just explaining it. If I'm a guy that was a free agent in the most recent cycle, 2025, and, I got a deal that wasn't fully guaranteed. And if I had known that a partial victory had been secured over the league in the collusion grievance that was hidden in the safe in Lloyd Howell's office for more than 5 months, if I'd known about it, if my agent had known about it, he might have been able to negotiate a better deal for me. That's an argument I've heard from agents that, hey, if I had known about this, I could have done a better deal for my client. The other thing, too, is the idea that because this thing was hidden. Now, I don't know how this. Let me back up a step. The league and the union had an agreement that they were going to freeze the collusion litigation in place until one side or the other decided to move forward. I haven't seen the language of that agreement. Obviously, the union has decided to move forward and appeal the collusion grievance. I don't know if that was worded broadly enough to protect the players who would say, based on the collusion grievance, I'm filing my own. We have a partial finding that there was an urging of teams to collude. I'm going to use that as the starting point for my own collusion case based on my own contract that I've signed since this all happened. And the argument from the league would be, sorry, deadline's expired. Deadline's expired for filing your non-injury grievance under the CBA. I don't know how that would shake out, but hey, at a minimum, and I think the precursor would be filing the grievance and forcing the league to make that argument, losing on that argument. And if you do lose on that argument that the deadline's expired, that's when you turn back around and you sue the NFLPA. But I'm not trying to stir up litigation against the NFLPA. I'm just trying to demonstrate that there are rights if players want to pursue them. And we had heard in the aftermath of the reporting that came from the Pablo Torre Finds Out episode from several weeks back that exposed the 61-page collusion ruling, there were players that were calling around to see what their legal options were. And they've got their legal options. They've got their options within the confines of the NFLPA Constitution. Will there be a sufficient uprising to remove Lloyd Howell? How much of that depends upon the investigation that was started as a result of the One Team Partners investigation from the FBI? Nobody really still knows what that's all about. Now you've got an investigator on the scene. You've got other issues that have come up, hiding the collusion ruling, conflict of interest that previously wasn't taken very seriously. How do all those things come together? And does it result at some point in the player representatives, one per team, getting together in a room and at least 2/3 of them voting to change the NFLPA executive director? That's all TBD. And, one of the points that we've been making is the powers that be at the union, non-player leadership, Lloyd Howell and J.C. Tretter, they may be just hoping to kick the can until training camps open, at which point bright, shiny objects distract everyone. And we can forget about those meddling kids who have created all these issues. I guarantee you this, though, I ain't going to forget about it. And I'll find a way to talk about it, write about it, continue to cover it until we have a final answer as to what that investigation being conducted by an outside lawyer concludes and what the final action is and whatever else may pop up. Because who knows? Last week, I didn't know there was going to be a story from ESPN that Lloyd Howell has this obvious conflict of interest where he's a paid consultant, part-time, but still with the Carlyle Group, a private equity fund that's on the short list of private equity funds that have been pre-authorized by the NFL to purchase a minority interest team. It's laughable. It is laughable that it sounds like a joke when you say it. It sounds like a bit. The head of a sports union works as a consultant for a private equity fund that has been pre-approved by the mortal enemy of the sports union to buy minority interests in NFL teams. It is a joke. And I wanted to say a word that started with F, but I don't want to have to make Gary bleep it. Okay. Dan Mushman. It's either Mushman or Mushman. Do you think the NFL is taking the London market seriously? Seats still available for all games, used to sell out within hours. I don't know whether or not that's true. I'll take your word for it, Mr. Mushman. Jags fatigue, not Jets, Jags fatigue, poor matchups, above inflation ticket increases, getting rid of season tickets. When will it change? Look, I think they're taking the London market seriously, but I also think that they realize there are other markets that maybe they're going to take more seriously, like Germany. Seems like there's a greater passion in comparison between Germany and London. But London's got 2 NFL-ready stadiums, and they're all in with Europe. And who knows where it's going to go from here? So it may just be they're taking London for granted. Not that they're taking London seriously. They're taking London for granted. And, we see this in all businesses and all walks of life. Something new comes along to get the attention of the people in charge. And the thing that's been there, the old reliable, gets taken for granted. So London is the old reliable that's being taken for granted now that the NFL is infatuated with Germany and Spain and wherever else they want to try to play the game. So I think that's the answer, Dan Mushman or Mushman. I think the NFL isn't failing to take London seriously. I think the NFL is taking London for granted. All right, one more. And along those same lines from Lee Dale, UK. Greetings from London. Hopefully you make it back onto Sky. We hope so too. If the NFL looks to expand franchises, what's the most likely way to do it? Flat add a new division in each conference, increase division size, or some sort of it by bit adding teams, and that means division sizes will vary. Look, this is the problem. When the Texans joined the NFL in 2002, they fell into a perfect configuration of teams. Before 2002, 6 teams were in the old AFC Central. 6 teams. So now they've got, and I remember when Tampa Bay and Seattle joined, then all of a sudden you got multiple 5-team divisions and 4-team divisions. And, that's a big difference. Like 4 teams versus 5 in a division, that makes it harder to win the division. So now they've got 8 divisions with 4 teams each, and they love it that way. So what do you do if you have a European division? Which, and this was several months ago, but hey, I was reliably told the NFLPA kind of bracing for the NFL to eventually say we want to do this, and what are all the issues involved, and how do we make this work? You've got different players that land in different countries with different governments and different tax systems and different exchange rates and different everything. And, you don't just leave overnight for a road trip and then come back after the game. You're gone for weeks. Your family's there alone for weeks. Nobody bargained for that. Nobody wants that. The sorting hat now has other countries in it where you may be assigned. It just creates all sorts of issues. But from the standpoint of the configuration of the league, yeah, hey, what do you do? You have 4 expansion teams. You put them in one division. What conference do you put them in? And then what do you do with the imbalance? You're going to add 4 teams to one division. What are you going to do? You're going to take, what would that be? Okay, you add 4 teams to one division. It goes from 16 to 20. Now, do you take 2 teams away from that division or conference and move it to the other conference and go 18-18? That's probably what they would do. So what we would have, and I apologize for my clumsiness as I think out loud here. Let's say you have, and let's just say they put it in the AFC, a 4-team division with 2 teams in London, Germany, and Spain, just for sake of example. So that's one division, 4 teams. Then you've got the other 16 teams are already there. You take one of the divisions, let's just say the South. You take 2 of the teams, let's just say Colts, because they used to be in the NFL pre-merger. We'll take the Colts and we'll take the Jaguars. And we'll take the Colts and the Jaguars and we will move them to the NFC. And we'll put one of them in one division and one of them in another. And then the Texans and the Titans, one of them get assigned to a division in the AFC and one gets assigned to the other. So you come out of it with 2 5-team divisions in each conference, 2 4-team divisions in each conference, and one conference has a European division and the other one doesn't, which in and of itself is an imbalance because you're going to have greater obligations on the teams in the AFC if you put the European division in the AFC to have to travel to play these teams twice a year, which would be one road trip and 2 games back to back. That's why the Vikings are doing it this year. Steelers in Dublin, Browns in London. This is the first test case for this concept of taking a team that would have to play 2 teams in Europe, take them over there, schedule it back to back, so it's just one trip. So that's an example of how it could work. Whether it makes sense or not isn't up to me, but that's an example of how you would absorb a 4-team European division. The problem is, yeah, it creates a greater hardship for the AFC if you drop that division in there. Now, what they also could do, this would result in 40 teams, and I think eventually they will have 40 teams. I will be pushing up more than 40 daisies by then, but you could do 4 European teams and 4 Pacific teams, right? That would require, I think, a more comprehensive overhaul of the league. I think you would almost need to have an East and West conference. You would need to put all the California teams in the same division, in the same conference, excuse me. I don't know why I'm mixing that up today. So regardless, you put all the California, Denver, Arizona, Seattle, you load up one conference with the teams that are on kind of that half of the world or that portion of the world, and then everybody like east of the Mississippi is in the other one. I don't know that that's seamless, but I think you'd have to do that at some point if you would go 4-team European division, 4-team Pacific division. But this is what they want to do. They want to grow the sport. They want to have more inventory. Hey, once they get to the maximum number of games, I think that's when expansion becomes a reality. And who cares if there aren't enough quarterbacks to go around? The year that all the quarterbacks were injured, 2023, the numbers were still great. Hey, you don't have a great quarterback? Oh, well, we're still playing the game. And we're still going to put it on TV, and we're still going to make a ton of money off of it. Sorry, your quarterback isn't very good, but we're talking about 8 more teams, and I don't know, maybe there will be enough competent quarterback. I don't know. Look at how many colleges there are. And nobody says, are there too many colleges? Are there too many college programs? Now, there's only a small group that run the sport, and look at the NFL right now. There's a small group that runs the sport. So competitive considerations like that in today's NFL, and maybe the NFL of yesteryear, at some point it changed. 70s, 80s, I don't know when. Making money superseded everything else. And all those other things are just details. Oh, you're not going to have enough quarterbacks? Oh, well. Oh, well. I'll shed some tears with that when I'm done counting the money. More games, more teams, more countries, more money. Follow the money, period. So we may not like it. They don't care if we like it, because what are we going to do? Are we going to stop watching? Are we going to say enough is enough? I'm done with that sport. Are we going to deny ourselves the thing we love? See, I talked about the London market being taken for granted. The American market is being taken for granted. Instead of maximizing the full and complete saturation point of American interest in football, they're focused on all these other countries. And hey, maybe one of these days they will play a Super Bowl overseas. And if they do, we will huff and we will puff and we will tune in at 1 o'clock Eastern on the day of the Super Bowl to consume the full 6.5-hour pregame show, watch the full Super Bowl, and talk about it for the rest of the week. And we won't care where it was played. It could be played on the friggin' moon as long as it looks the same coming through our flat screens in our TV rooms or on our phones or wherever we may be. That's the reality. They'll take us for granted because they can, because they have a product that we want that we can't get anywhere else. Oh, there's pro football elsewhere, and nobody cares about it. They care about the NFL, and yeah, they'll keep taking our money, and they'll keep finding ways to make more money. And hey, I'm a capitalist. I have no problem with it, but I'm explaining to you, this is where it happens. This is where it goes. It goes with the money. Follow the money. That's it for today. We'll be back for a Wednesday edition of PFT PM. Check us out around the clock at profootballtalk.com. Thanks as always for some of your time. See you next time.